of these friends and people you meet, all the producer, and then the gig coming, the live show, which was great.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's just these 3 days of like unlimited passion and stuff.
Yes.
It was very.
The Berlin-based Italian musician and sound artist Oora, born as Federico Chiesa, is known for his deep thoughts about the relation of the artist and their art, about how to make art in the 21st century. He transformed from a professional photographer to a professional and inspired musician, but calling Federico only a musician would do him an injustice, so let me call him a musician and sound artist, content creator and social media jockey, a universal artist and philosopher of art, a YouTuber, and a great guy to talk with. And here he is, Federico Chiesa, aka Oora.
Once again, thank you for being, well, may I say on my show? No, it's not a show, it's talk. First question. In your studio, I've watched your videos, and by the way, I enjoy that really very much. Very interesting ideas. Let's talk about this later. There are different kinds of equipment. There is analog gear, modulars, semi-modulars, there's digital gear. There are reel-to-reel recorders, which I enjoy very much. So I imagine you don't have any problems, digital or not, this crazy discussion.
No, I don't. I come from the photography world, and I work as a photographer for a long time. And I was there in the year 2000 when there was the switch between analog photography, which I learned on, to digital photography. And I remember being there when everybody was saying, digital will never be as good as analog. And, you know, all of these mostly amateur kind of vibe when you have to pick one topic and fight about it. And I always saw digital as actually a great value tool or help for my generation, especially because we learned on analog, but then we had the chance to really save money and have getting experience with the digital world. And by now, of course, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, things were, you know, at the beginning, especially, with photography and music, which I kind of try to always put together somehow. And, but now, honestly, the digital counterparts of, you know, analog instrument or effects are such good sounding things that I don't see any problem using it. And I don't like to engage in the the polemics about that. But mostly is what gets you creative and happy. There's people that you know, there's always that guy that see the modular guy with a wall of things to do, does blip blop sound, and criticize him and say, I can do that in my computer for free. But what I think is just like what gets you creative and gets you interested in doing something, then no matter what you pay for that, it's worth. So whatever gets you happy is fine. And for me, the analog, it's more the fact that I love computers. I spend a lot of my time with software, but it's mostly paralysis when I have too much possibilities, and that's why picking some instrument and learn only those, and usually have one instrument that only do one kind of things, helps me not get like in this ocean of possibility that never get me anywhere.
Yeah, sure. I notice from another side of production, I notice this phenomenon a lot. I used to make tutorial videos, very in-depth, whole series. I have one plug-in. I made I think 24 videos about. And the first 2 or 3 videos that people watch, and then they lose their interest because they want to jump to something else, to another plug-in. So everybody not everybody, of course. But a lot of people, I think that's strong, wants to know a little bit about a mess of things.
Yeah.
All right. This reel-to-reel machine, I love them, by the way. How often do you really use it?
So let's say I used to use it more, honestly. Now, when I moved from USA to first Italy and then Berlin, it was I give it as back there.
Yeah.
I was on a ship, so it take a long time to come here. Now, finally, it's hooked up to the mixer, and sadly, though, I realized that there's an imbalance between the two channels, so it needs now some servicing. At the same time, I'm using it for creative uses, like most of the time I record at 15, the speed, what is 15? I don't remember the term. And then I have it to 7.5, and then I have that tape, not warbliness because it's very clean sounding, but just halving the speed of a recording, give a nice texture and a nice vibe, a lower octave. So I use it for that right now. It's also nice on drums and on a rhythmic thing. It definitely take a lot of more time and patience to prepare everything. But the plan now is restoring it, and here in Berlin, thankfully, a lot of servicing for that kind of stuff, which in USA was kind of harder and way more expensive. So sooner or later, it will be fully restored, and I will use it more. Planning also to do probably mix down with it in parallel, so to have a touch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think working with tape machine multi-trackers, for it mainly, it needs a lot more of planning than recording on hard disk.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have also a mixer that allows you to set the gain staging easily and move the sounds in a nice way, it helps. Back in the day, honestly, I was using it just as a creative thing. So I would just hook up a synth to it, record a pad or something, slow it down, and then just record it back. But also I'm planning to use it as I never tried it yet, but you can use it as a tape delay.
Yeah.
And something that I want to do, not that I miss any, I have a lot of tape delay already, but that is the original way, like dubbers used to do it. So I'm also planning on trying to use it as a...
Yeah, there are but some really good emulation, software emulations of tapes. Berlin UHE, they have one nice, I think, what is it?
Yeah.
Satin, I think is the name, doesn't matter. But it comes down to how you feel working with it. What you told me before, it's always the same. All right. Your studio sessions or your studio live performances, very interesting and nice one. So people go and watch them. The link to your channel will be in the description to this video here. Why not outside, or why not that often going outside, going to clubs and performing live there?
I have an experience as a live performer back when I was in band. I tour quite a lot, so I have few hundreds gigs back in my past. And funnily enough, I released it just yesterday on my YouTube channel, a video about the performing anxiety. I love playing out. Like it's if I would have to choose, like, now, what is your dream, what you would if still having dream at my age, but yes, I would love to perform more and maybe do tours with my music. At the same time, I live with this constant anxiety of doing things well, and like the stress of preparing stuff or playing out, the time that it takes, it sometimes impact a lot on my well-being. So I like to pick where I'm gonna go play. Like, so if it's festival, I always go. If it's like something that I really enjoy and I'm sure that the outcome will be nice, I will go. It's not even more related to what they pay me, but more how I would feel to play at that.
I see.
The lineup, etc. At the same time, like I'm at the point right now where I could play way more, and like there's bookers interested, and I'm a little afraid that the moment you go that way and then you start getting gigs, then it could be really heavy. I guess I'm not 20 anymore, so it's just like I'm not sure sometime if I would enjoy a life like even do 40, 50 live show a year could be a lot. But at the same time, I live with this constant things like I wish I can play more, and then I wish I also to stay comfort home. And I think Berlin is a great place because I already had a few concerts in the past months, and there's many possibilities. And I enjoy the fact that it's all here. There's so many venues, there's so many communities where you can play and have good audience and good result. So the plan is like focusing on that, and then focusing on finding more of a festival or art scene where my music would fit better.
I see. I see. Photographer, yeah, okay, I knew, of course, but you mentioned it before. You come from photography. I think it's a fascinating idea when to change, let's say, the medium of art, photography. Okay, there are different kinds of. I imagine photography is more art than technique. How did you develop? What was your motivation to do so, and how did you develop your skills as a photographer? How did you translate them to your skills as a musician?
I think so. Musician was the first dream when I was a kid. I always been obsessed by music instrument, and looking back at my childhood, I realize now that when I was probably 10 or 12, I started having this passion about musical stuff and musical toys, and I wanted to learn everything. And of course, it wasn't really easy in my family because I come from a family of, doctors, and they were like, you have to study something, and that is a hobby. So I always been curbed in that enthusiasm, and both from my parents, not in a bad way, but they didn't know in Italy like this could be a work, a job. And then I curbed myself, like, okay, music cannot ever be a profession. So I tried to learn. I went to university. It was a terrible experience because I didn't care about mostly anything. And then photography came into my life because an uncle of mine gifted me a Leica camera. And then it's where I start liking the Leica object too. So I feel that somehow I'm drawn into things by beautiful object, beautiful design. And then the photography started, I started with this small camera, and I liked it. It was an analog, of course, film camera. I like the process. I like to learn how to develop film and to print in the dark room. And suddenly I say, oh, I would love to make it a profession. And so I tried to make my parents accept to pay me for a photography school. And that went well, and then I started working right away. So that was a satisfying thing, because it was hard, thinking I become a photographer in Italy too. It's a place of no creative jobs, but at the same time, I was playing with band. I was having, like, as everybody starts, the tribute band, and then it became like personal music, like authentic music. I don't know what to say. And we had quite a success with this metal band, which was very cool to play with. I was singing and play guitar. And then I decided to move to New York. I had to leave the band. And in New York, I went with just nothing. I didn't know what to do, and I have good skill in photography business. So I started working for 10 years just in the photography, and don't do music anymore. Then the music come back in the form of synthesizers, where I find the fact that I can play by myself and I can build the thing. And somehow the two passions always kind of coincide, in the way that I was very skilled in the post-production part in the photography, like using Photoshop and making things polished and work well. With simple photography, I could create something very nice and complex. And at the same time, I see the same things in the synth world. I can start with a simple voice synth, and then make it more complex through effects, and then through what I would call post-production in music. And then I always find this similar way to approach, like the mastering in music, like the finishing, do the finishing touches in my post-production with my photo, to the point that right now I am actually writing a sort of book, manual, whatever you want to call it, in which it identifies the way that I was doing photography and now I'm doing music, and I can put things together. And now I think the two arts, in the way you frame things, you focus on things, are very similar. And I guess my music itself really relies on visual fascination, like movies or images that I have. You heard a lot of people that do the classic, the classic. Everybody, I feel, do one EP sooner or later, in which they call it a score from a movie that has never been shot. Everybody do that, and it's one of those. It's like when back in photography, sooner or later, anybody that work in fashion do a fashion shoot with a model that pretend to be a doll. There's something
yes.
But I feel that for us, especially in synth music, or especially in my bubble of synth community, the fascination that comes from movies and from images is very important. And so working with that frame, or working with that concept, really helps to produce things and have something that is kind of cohesive with an idea, with fascination with something. So that's how I think the visual part, photography and music, always went very close together. And also with my Instagram, I try to put what I know about cameras and lights and framing with the music.
Now I understand a lot better how, let's say, how the importance of texture in your music came into your music. Of course, I see. Texture, field recording. Is this a matter you are engaged with, or do you just get some sounds from outside, from other people?
I am really into the field recording thing, but I use it. I have my handheld recorder, like the Zoom that everybody has. Now, this is the classic Zoom H6, H4, I don't know the name. I've been I don't know a lot of field recording artists like the classic. I know that there's a complete community that is obsessing about that. I think I have a big passion for an artist called Kamaru. That is a guy that lives here in Berlin, that comes from South Africa, and had a big success a few years ago because he was mostly doing field recordings with his Zoom, and then had pads on top, making it seems really easy and really straightforward. And then there's Claire Rousset, that is another artist that I really like, that works a lot with field recording in a more cinematic way, building like long pieces that sounds like movies. And I like always to add some texture to my composition. I feel both is a cheat sometimes, because somehow, if you have a simple pad or some nice progression and you put a field recording, whatever it is, it could be a chicken in the field, it could be wind, it could be bird, it could be rocks tossed on the ground. It always had an organic quality to the synthetic sound, which automatically draws more attention. So I noticed that there's a lot of music that I hear that sometimes the field recording part is used as a I don't know, Deus ex machina, you would call it, or something that doesn't really have a reason to be there, but it's just grasp attention. And so I'm guilty of that sometimes. Sometimes I just prepare something and then I feel, okay, I just need the high frequency and so some noise that come usually in a field recording outside. There's always the white noise. There's always God forgive me, birds. That's a lot of things that a lot of people use. But it's super easy sometimes to just cover the lacking of frequency with a field recording. So I've been guilty of that. Now I try to be more mindful and actually make a sense out of that. So if I use field recording, it always has a certain reason, and that could be a particular recording that has value for me, or something that actually complements the music. So I wish I had more patience with that too, because in whatever I do in general, I've always been very fast and look for the improvisation and instinctual part. So the part of field recording is another one, like tape recording needs time. You need to go record and then select what you did, cut what you need. So that is not the way I like to work, but it come always, let's say, on a second time. It's never there from the beginning. So it's first come the music, and then if something is lacking or I feel that I can add some more interesting factor, then I will go through my archive and see, okay, this can work. Hardly though I do field recording on purpose and say, okay, I need this and I'm going to go now to do a field recording.
I see. So your relation to the material you are recording is, let's say, purely sonic. It's not because of the thing itself what you are.
Yeah, it's yeah. Rarely it happened a couple of times that has a real meaning. And I do a lot of texture through the use of effects, tape or cassette or whatever. So a lot of time I come out with a piece that might seem that there's a field recording in it. Instead, it's just a lot of processing that give that vibe, that there's organic. I've been told that my music sounds really organic sometimes, and I guess that is through the personal use I do of instrumental or effects or resampling thing, which get me to that particular sound.
Yeah, it's an interesting but not easy field of working to combine field recording and music in a, let's say, sensual way. I remember perhaps a little story with one of the student bands we had 45 years ago. We recorded with simple things, no Zoom, simple handheld recorders at the railway station. And we wanted to translate or transfer the sound of a leaving train into the musical piece. And after some, perhaps even weeks, I don't know, we succeeded. And last year I tried to do the same. I did not manage it. It's not that easy. Perhaps the modern equipment is not suitable for doing things like that. I don't know.
I never approached that like, okay, get some sound and make it something else, which is fascinating, but also I have a hard time when how to say, all things come naturally to me. So for example, I get a sound, it comes very easy for me to get to a nice texture, to the point that this morning I was checking on I have a huge folder with a lot of recording, because every video that I do, and back in the day I was doing one a day, I record it and then put it there. And I was going through in that because a visual artist wanted some audio to work with. And 90% of those, I'm like always wondering, wow, this sounds so cool, but I have no clue how I did it. Not a single clue. So I work with this very immediate workflow. Whatever it comes, I record it and then I forget it. I don't have preset and stuff. But I never approach with, okay, this is a synth and now I want this to sound as a drum of machine example, which I notice a lot of people enjoy, to grab a piece of kit and find the unusual way you can use it, and hence like find a new way and decouple the ideas, what is the instrument is to what the instrument can do, which again is fascinating, but to me it's not the way I want to work. I like to have things that do their own thing, and then through combination of more of that and my ideas, I go somewhere. But everything comes really easy on what I'm doing, because like with modular, for example, I have a lot of modules. I'm guilty also on having too much modules, but I don't know how to use them really well. And like I have people here in the studios, where my studio here, they're master with modular and they do insane things, and they know while they're patching, they know what they're doing. I go mostly random, and then I get nice result. I record them, and I will never be able to get there again.
I see.
It's like I think it's part of the fun, that if I cannot get back to that result, I hope nobody can do either. So I create something unique, even for myself, and I will, stick with that.
All right. Is there anybody listening to your productions before you go and publish them?
I try to do that more lately. I'm not really comfortable with that, in the way that so for the producing part, when I do stuff that resonate with me as an artist, like I do my pieces, and mostly my ambient piece, the one that are less produced, I try not to ask advice, and this is something that it's my personal experience, mostly when I was in photography, and I noticed that as human beings, whenever you ask for advice to somebody else or to comment, you always get something back, which is fine, but also it can be a curse, meaning that everybody feels entitled to say something about the work of other people, right? Especially if you ask for that. So I always felt that sometime if you produce something and you like it, and you are at the point that, okay, you know what you're doing, and you know your instrument, and you know your art, then I'm happy to just release with my own personal only opinion. And that's when I do my, let's say, more artistic output. I don't want anybody else to comment on that before I release, because I know that if you will listen and you will put your own taste in that, you will somehow try to adapt my personal view on things to yours, which is something that I feel art in general should never do, because I feel, and I hope this doesn't sound like presumptuous, but what interesting me, if you're an artist and you produce something, I want to just listen what you produce without any other input. And the other input, of course, you had in the course of your life, looking at other art, listening to other people, and then you put everything together and something come out. So if you're an artist, I don't want to influence what you do. I want to listen your most pure output. That's what I would like to listen. Then let's say I produce something that it's more functional music, a dance track, or a scoring track, and in that case it fall more in a commercial side of things, yes, or being commercial, being functional, need to function somewhere. Then it's where I like to have help. So when I do my more, I don't do dance track, but I do some dub techno production. And in that case, it's always useful if you have the chance to talk with somebody that has a lot of knowledge about that. You send it out, say, how does it sound? And here in Riverside, where I have the studio, there's very big, well-known, established producers, and it's actually amazing the fact that I can send them their track and they say, okay, maybe the bass is not working, or maybe the arrangement is not working. So I guess what I learned is, if you ask for advice, be careful, because people will give you advice, and then you need to know how to deal with that and how to use their advice. And there's a place and time for advice. That's what I think. So I try always to have a very small circle of friends that or professional that I really trust, and that they would listen carefully, because that's the other thing. Sometimes you send your track to friends or to people, and they just glide over it. They don't really listen to that with the carefulness you would expect. And then their advice, it's just their ego on top of yours. So it's good.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see. I agree with your division between, let's say, art music and functional music. I remember one situation when I had to deliver a track for a spot. And I asked my wife. I have to say, my wife doesn't know anything about music, and she isn't even that interested in music, what is great.
My wife, sorry.
which is great. And I never ask musicians, never, ever. And I remember was to send it in, and my wife came in and I said, hey, just wait a minute, only 2 minutes, listen to it, what do you think? And she said, Mam hlad, that's Czech, it means I'm hungry. And I knew this track doesn't work. All right.
Nice.
Okay. Your videos are, not all, of course, but a lot of them seem to me to be addressed to younger people. Why?
Interesting. I never thought about that. Well, let's say that. This is an interesting question. I mean, interesting. Why you think that? I have the feeling that I struggle a lot in communicating with a younger audience for example, that's why I ditch completely outlet like TikTok, where the language of the visual, it's faster and it's a completely, when you deal with the visual communication like I did for years, you learn right away, you understand right away if you can learn or fit certain languages. And Instagram, for example, is a place, it's a quieter place. TikTok is very loud, that's what I think. And Instagram, there's a field with terrible content, but there's also nice content. And I don't know, because if we watch at my analytics, they're kind of scary in a way that, so my the bulk of my audience is between the age of 30 to 40, and the 90% of it is male, which is the male part is really sad to me, because of course it tells me how hard it is still as a man content creator to appeal to a female audience, and not because I try to sexualize anything. It's just like I do what I know, and evidently the way I approach the synth music, it's not the way that a female producer would approach that, which is both interesting and both like I would love to know more. I would love to, but sadly, still the female counterpart is still growing. Still, like, you know, you see at Superboot, literally, I would have said 95% of the people are men, and hopefully these things will change, and it will take time. At the same time, like the age factor, of course, I have a very expensive thing, and I'm lucky that I managed to get that with collaboration, with saving, with the little money I'm doing with this endeavor now. And so I guess I appeal more to an audience that, you know, over 30, that has a allowance to get this kind of stuff. So honestly, I don't think that a lot of youngster could find my stuff interesting, also because I go into digging into the ambient part, in the more chill, and I like to think that my music is more quiet. It's like more meditative, more cinematic. It kind of scares me a little, the idea of dealing with the young market right now. It's, you know, we all get, when you get 30, you start thinking like, oh, these 20 years old, I don't get it. And then you get 40 and the 30, and you know, now I'm mid 40, and it's like ideal. Probably it's the first years that I start dealing a lot with melancholia, and like dealing with the fact that I'm getting old, and like you know, I mean, that middle age, which you cannot do a lot of things that you were doing 5 years ago. I don't know, mostly, you know, for dignity, for like how you present yourself, how you, at the same time, I live in a community here surrounded by very young, talented people, and I deal with a lot of 20 years old, and then a lot of people in their 20s reach out to me asking for advices, and I like to teach and share what I can do. So I guess I'm fighting to hold my position in society as somebody that is aging well and is still young inside, and know about technology and know about what's happening around the world. So, you know, being on the social game really helps me to know a lot about what's happening. So I know the trends, I know what the young producer do, but at the same time, I try to keep myself, again, for a dignity perspective to do what I know how to do, and not dipping into territories that are not mine. Again, that's why I completely avoid using TikTok, because it would be, I don't want to see myself doing the kind of video that would work there. And by now, I know what I can do to make more visualization or but I try not, I try always to have a good content, put good intention in the content that I put out. And the intention are never making money or making likes. It's always like, I share what I am, I share what I like to do. And the more I do that honestly, the more the outcome is nice.
Yeah, I see. I got the impression that led me to my question concerning younger people, because in your YouTube videos you address questions which I would like to have addressed 65, 70 years before.
Interesting, yeah. No,
yeah.
that.
When I started. So I'm not completely in the let's say age level of Keith Richards, but I'm more beautiful than he is.
Well, nobody will ever be in the range of Keith Richards. You will never die. But that said, in the video that I released yesterday, I was talking about anxiety, right? And the fact that one would think after the 30, when you're above 30, you become a man or a woman. I just, but especially as men, or as we grow up in our age, when there was a lot of stigmas on how a man should be, how a man should behave when he grew up. So you should be assertive, you should be confident, you should know what you are doing when you are 30, and then more when you're 40. My life has been always a change of career after another, and I always struggle with what my family put in my mind, like, you need to have a family, you need to have kids, you need to have your own house, you need to have your own work. And I have nothing of that. I have a wife, yes, but we didn't have kids, and we decided not to. We never bought a home. We don't know. We don't basically didn't build a situation like you are supposed to. So I still deal with insecurity or doubts that I had when I was a teenager, let's say, and like imposter syndrome, insecurity. And after the video I published yesterday, today I was chatting with one of the most popular TV show director around in the world right now. We became friends. I don't want to make the name because I don't want to. But anyway, it's a extremely popular and extremely successful person. And he replied to my video and say, like, oh my God, I deal with imposter syndrome every day. And I was like, wow, coming from somebody like you that reached the top game, it's like eye-opening. And like we discussed about that. It's just like something that some people, some artists, or the creative people, I think, have planted in their brain, and we come out to a conclusion or decision, I don't know, that maybe that is the way we get better and we keep producing. The fact that we never feel enough in this world, we never feel that.
Absolutely.
We think that, yeah, and so the strive of getting better, do better art, do something we will be remembered for. It's both our curse, because we will always suffer, we will always feel incomplete or struggling, but at the same time, that's the way we keep hustling. And I always bring my brother example too. My brother is a teacher at university. When we were young, we were a little the opposite. He was the one that wanted to move away from Italy, and he moved away from Italy when he was still a teenager, and I was home with my friend. I didn't want to, take any risk, and he was risking and going away. And so we all think, oh, he's gonna do, gonna be big things, risky things. And in the end, he ended up being a teacher at university in Spain, which is a very quiet job, and he do a very quiet life, and he's very happy. He has 2 kids, and he doesn't strive to do anything like, okay, the world will have to remember what I'm doing.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And he's happy, and that is like, sometimes I'm jealous. It's like, I wish I had the same, being content with what I have, look at what I have and celebrate it. And I cannot. I got a success on something, but I already thinking of, this is not enough, I need to do better. And I think that is the main characteristic of the creative soul, is like the struggle in this feeling, nothing is ever enough. And probably happiness as like contentness, and like setting your life and say, okay, now I'm set up, I don't have to do anything else. It will never come. And so it's both a curse and a bless, in the way that maybe I will live my life until I die trying to get better at something, and who knows where I will get, but I will get somewhere.
In one video, I remember you asked the question, or you stated the question, you have to decide who you are, what you want to be, and what you want your art to be. I think that's it, what you are talking about.
Yeah. There's that. There's the fact that there's a lot of chit-chatting about the role that people like me have in the community. As what are you? Like, are you an artist? Are you doing content? Are you just producing things to feed the mouth of this machine that just need stuff continuously? And it's hard sometimes to define what you're doing versus what you want to be. It's hard to call myself an artist still, but I guess the struggle in calling yourself something, like in my case, I would love to be remembered as an artist, and not because I put art versus content. I don't care. It's just everything is content to me, but it's the intention behind the content that makes art or makes bad stuff. But I start feeling more comfortable in defining myself a musician or an artist when the musician or the artist that I love reach out to me. And I find out some of them were influenced by my idea. They were actually loving what I was saying. And to me, that was the first moment when I was like, wait, what is happening here? And one time the guitarist of The Who wrote me, and I was like, wow, and the guy was sincerely, he's a legend, and like a real legend. People that we are talking about in the same league as Rolling Stone and Beatles. And this guy wrote me a mail and say how he likes my music and how he's dealing with synth, and I was helpful for him to understand. And so it started like that, and I had more confirmation along the way. And so that is when I say, okay, I did the step from being just, a hobbyist or like putting things that, but actually what I'm saying resonate with others. So I am now accepted in the community. I'm a peer of them, and that really helped my insecurity in like, okay, I'm doing something good, and I'm recognized by the people I want to be recognized by.
Yes, it's a nice feeling indeed. Yeah. Money and art are most of the time they are not sitting in the same boat. Have you managed to put them at least from time to time into the same boat?
Still struggling, honestly, but also my 10 years in USA reframe the concept I have about money. And now I'm terrible with money. Terrible. One of the big issue that I have in life is like I see, not a lot, but few of my friends, American mostly, that at my age maybe have a few millions in the bank, you know, and they have a comfortable life, which I'm still not having. I have a comfortable life in the sense that I have everything I need, but I'm not at the point that tomorrow I can say, okay, I'm going to buy a house, or I'm going to buy a status, you know. So in USA, the concept is like art is content and art is worth. So artists there do art because they want to do money. So it's not taboo to define, to put money and art together. And actually, you become an artist, but that 1%, even less probably, of artists that make it as a living, you need to ask money for what you do. So it's really basic, and it's really normal to think about that. I think in Europe, and I generalize because I come from Italy, but I feel that this is a concept that is shared in all the old world. We started feeling that, and this probably coming from the Romantic age, from the 1800s, I don't know, start feeling that the artist die poor. And then it's discovered after. And you don't do art for money, but you do art for, you know, it's your calling, and it eventually will kill you. Eventually you will die alone, die poor, but the fact that you die for it, the fact that you struggle for it, give your art value, which it's something that it's beautifully romantic, but it's not true. And I remember I read something about the Renaissance time, and it blows my mind because there was this guy wrote a book about the artist. I think it. Now I don't remember the book, but it was super interesting. And basically, there's banks was already invented during that time, right? Especially in Italy. So we are talking a Renaissance in Tuscany, especially with the Medici family. They were the mecenate that they would pay a lot of artists to do their stuff. And the interesting part is like all of these artists, the famous one, including, you know, Michelangelo, Leonardo, they had a sort of managers that would make them get money, and every transaction was recorded. So these people, they were artists, but they were artisan more than artists. They were people that actually work. And on these documents that are preserved, you understand how even in that age, the artist was an hustler, was somebody that, okay, I work and doing my masterpiece. I don't do that thinking I'm doing masterpiece. It's just my work. It's just a job. Then I think culturally, we build on top of that on the mystic value of art and the fact that those people were unrivaled master, and then that transcend money and transcend the economy of it. But they were selling themselves very well, and they were successful because they were, you know, both artists and artisan and managers. So that really made me think in like how then the history of art, and I think especially during the Romantic time, during the 1800s, during all like the Van Gogh stories that we heard, that we all think, oh, look at these artists, they all struggle. We give for granted that all artists struggle, which is not really true. I have friends that are very smart, money savvy artists, and they never struggle. They know what they can produce to make money. They know what they can produce to make just what they like. And that's what I'm trying to do in my, when I decided to do content, honestly, my first idea was like, it's really hard, especially now for our, white men without a cool, catchy story to become not famous, but become to carve your own pedestal where you can talk. So I said, I'm going to create my own through content and through the fact that I will have a precise visual. I will start building my own community, and hence with true content, I will build my audience. And that's what I did. It's like it was a lot of work because, of course, if a label would have find me or a gallerist will find your work as an artist, then maybe it's all downhill. For me, it was just like uphill and try to be smart and find, okay, how first can I create an audience? Then how can I monetize the audience? And then where Patreon start, when collaboration start, and when the YouTube start, where I have to do, more of a things that can be monetized. And to be honest, we are still talking about crumbles. It's yes, you can make a living, but when I was in photography, it was at least 3 times more salary that what I'm doing now. Of course, now I'm happier, and I feel I live in this glitch system because I just come every day in the studio. I do music. I play with toys. Literally, I play with toys, and I see my neighbor Toby Neumann, which is an amazing musician, a very legend-like DJ and producer. He's older than me. I don't know his age, but he's still. When I see him playing with his modular, you see a kid playing. And I was thinking about it. I was like, it's a blessed life. It's like at his age, he still have enthusiasm. And it's not because he's older, like he's probably 50, but you give for granted that over, again, 20, it's no more game. It's just you work and you're serious in what you're doing. Instead, we are so lucky and blessed by the fact that doing music is putting together things, play, see how it works, and it is all a funny endeavor. So even if you get less money, but you can sustain yourself, but your life, you feel with, this moment, it's worth.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Don't do it if your goal is make a lot of money. If your goal it's like buy yourself a G-Wagon, maybe it's a complex niche, and it might not lead to happiness if that is your happiness.
No, more. I'd say rather it won't lead to happiness at all. Being fixed on money, sure. Well, yes, making ends meet and being able to do what you like to do, it's absolutely. I think it's a top achievement what you can have at all. Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah.
Not really money, but let's say fictive money. Imagine a big film company, Warner Brothers or what else, would say, "Hey, we are seriously thinking of hiring you for a project, but at first we would like to listen to some music of you, what you yourself choose. So which 2 or 3 pieces of yours would you send in?"
Wow, that's
and probably some which our listeners here will be able to buy after our video.
It's an extremely hard question. Now, fun things. I don't remember the titles of my tracks, most of them. Whenever I put something out, I'm mostly done with that project. And I think a lot of artists do that. They don't engage with that it's done. So it's out of my life. It's related to a moment of my life. I always love to create. When I do scoring or project, I'm very fast and I really work well doing on demand. Like, you send me a video, I got fascinated and I create something for that. Of course, I have by now a lot of album out, music out, which a lot of people don't know because they give for granted that I am the content or the internet guy. So it's always fun because a lot of people ask me, do you have any music out? And, you know, there's list. Every post I do in YouTube, there's like more Oora and all, like SoundCloud, and there's tons of tracks out. There's different production that I do, and it would be hard for me to pinpoint my album that is a little more rhythm oriented iteration. I really still like it, and there's few tracks that Intermission is a track that one of my most loved, super simple, but gives the idea of what is my perception of a dance track, what I like. That said, all the other smaller album, like In Darkness, like the new Mavis EP, there are very emotional things that are super simple, and somehow when I listen, for example, in the last album, there's this in the Mavis EP that the latest that I published, the last track that is called A Promise You Can't Keep. The entire album was a story I had on my mind. So it's a concept album, and it was like a sort of story I would tell to my niece and nephew about kid going in the underworld and meeting a creature that he falls in love, but then they are different and they cannot be together anymore. So I start with a basic, what would be an 80 movie in my head, and I try to build a few tracks telling the story that would pitch into the romantic, and then the horror, and then the Goonies kind of vibe, and then it come out on this very sad, melancholic track. And that is when I listen to the track, which is literally 8 notes that repeat itself through the entire track, but through the use of distortion and effects build up in a very cinematic way. It's something that really represents who I am and what I am. Again, it's super simple, but super me. And right now I'm more in a complex production phase. So the things that I'm putting together now a new album, and the tracks are way more complicated than my usual, because I had the chance to work in a different way. And so this time I wanted to spend more time in building layers and stuff. So it's hard for me to pinpoint what you should listen. And I wouldn't really know. I would go for Iteration as the album, and then the Mavis EP that is the last one, the two thing. But it's a good question, because if a big company will ever reach out to me, I should be more prepared.
Yeah, so you can go and think about it. No, don't do those. All right. Is there anything which I have not asked, but you would like our audience to know or to think about?
It's hard to say. Like the more I go on with this endeavor of music, which was something that I always been taught and tell that is never gonna be a viable solution for your life. You will always struggle, and yes, it's true. the more I think that those kind of things you hear from self-development mumbo jumbo American books, like on finding your dream and pursue it, the more I think it's true in a way that, as I mentioned before, I knew since I was a kid what I like to do. And what happened in society most of the time, it's like the other people will influence you or will tell you what to do, and maybe you had a clear idea of yourself since you were a kid. Now, these of course don't happen all the time, but I wish that I would have cultivated the passion that I had, supported by society. And I'm not trying to say that was fault of my parents not telling me, okay, you'll be a musician or you'll be an artist, because again, it's something that they were afraid of my future. They were like, you need to be safe, you cannot struggle. So it's like I realize that each one of us want to be understood and want to be appreciated and want to be heard. Not everybody. Somebody don't care. Somebody is the kind of guy that do its own things and don't care what everybody else has to say. But somehow I feel that finding a place in society and have your purpose, it's the struggle that we, and especially this very entitled and very rich society have now. My generation, it's a generation that went through their entire life without wars, without famine, without sickness. We've been just lucky. And I noticed that more even in USA, where like they even have been touched by, the war and poverty, because they were very entitled society. And that's what creates a sort of, I think, of army of people like me that never had problems. So they had to find problem in something. They have to find issues and struggle in something else. And hence, like this resurgence of meditation, the resurgence of self-development stuff. And I think the problem has been that we never deal with real struggle, and so all the struggle are interior, and we deal with the imposter syndrome because we've been so lucky and so entitled to do whatever we want. So I feel that what is the advice that I would go is like cultivate your own voice and your own skill in communication, because that's eventually being able to communicate yourself, be honest with yourself and with the others. It's what it's all about. My language is music. Other people's language could be making sandwiches for other, do art, clean, organize. It doesn't have to relate to music, but if you find out what makes you comfortable, what makes you express yourself, whatever it is, and you have the chance to pursue that, I think you will end up with a most fulfilled and happy life. And what I would like to do through music and through my internet video, it would be not something related to this specific craft, but try to be vulnerable in, especially being a man, and so trying to fight back and to crumble everything I've been teach on how a man should be. We talk about that a little briefly, but trying to deconstruct everything that I've been forced to be, and then build on top of that. And
nice.
Music is music, but like my videos on opening up on my vulnerability is a constant exercise. It's like, okay, it's not what it seems, and this is who I am. And so radical honesty and this this sort of religious being and sharing what you know and be honest in what you are. I think it's what makes me happy and what makes people interesting. So I wish that we all embrace like this purity of not showing off and just be who we are, and then accept that whatever you do, if it makes you happy, has value for you and for the others.
Let me ask the last but rather personal question. It just comes into my mind. Have you managed to preserve at least a little bit of the magic you felt when you touched your first musical instrument?
I have moments almost every day in which I find pockets of happiness and excitement. Like for somebody that works musically only, for example, in C minor, and that's it, and mostly end up with same workflow, there's moment in which the combination of things, of my mood or how put things together, or using the same instrument and trying something different, it gives me excitement. So I still have the excitement of coming here, and when I'm not at studio, I think of being here. It's you know, it's really silly, but some of us, and I'm sure you relate, the idea of touching instrument and create music, it's beautiful, and maybe not a lot of people can understand that. So I'd say that whenever I get a new instrument, I always have the excitement of it. If it's well designed and it's beautiful, I need beauty in my life. I love well-designed thing. So I think I'm still excited about doing this as day one, about touching and doing music. Of course, that there's the part of I have to create also, because it became a job. So sometimes I struggle with that, and there's day where I don't get any excitement or any happiness, but I learn to accept that too. And like when I moved to this new studio since January, I built everything. It was a lot. I felt really, it was a lot of work, and I created zero music, and I was nauseated by music. I couldn't touch anything, and I was really down. I was like, those thoughts, I should stop, I should sell everything. And then after a while, things come back. So it's like I need to realize and accept all the time that there's moment where creativity will not be there, and the same is you love, you want to love it. But for example, every time I touch the Performer, which is my instrument, which is the most simple synth I have probably ever created in the world, I feel connected, and I feel excited because my movement translates in my ideas and what I want in my mind. And that's always like, okay, I find a sort of relationship with an object that go a little transcend the object itself and makes me feel I can communicate with that. So yes, I still feel excited even if I don't own it since 5 years.
That's great. That's wonderful. All right. Just one remark, talking about being tired of making music from time to time. That's one of the reasons why I like field recording. And when I'm tired in my studio and I say, no, then I take my mobile recorder and go out discovering things, breathing fresh air. And after some time, I return to the studio and say, wow, it's a nice place to be again.
It's something that I should do more. I close myself here. There's no window, and I'm super focused, but I miss going out. So I should do more. And I remember it's worth to mention. Like I started my journey after taking a workshop with Sebastian Mullert. He does every few months this, it was online, but he also do in person thing called In Bloom, which gave me the idea of creating full improvisation with nothing prepared, live setup, and from there everything started. So it's not that teach me how to use the instrument, but teach me how to listen to what I really want. And I remember on his teaching, he was always very adamant. It's like, always meditate before, and that's mean up to you. People like meditate, someone that doesn't. But also take walk outside in nature, especially when you don't feel comfortable being with your instrument. And it's true that like having this stop and recharge with fresh air, with nature, if you can, if you're lucky enough to have nature around, it's probably the easiest solution to the down moment that we find.
All right. Federico, I thank you very much for this more than only inspiring talk.
Thanks for calling me. I always like to talk about this kind of stuff. Hope people would find it interesting.
I'm sure. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your day. I will let you know when this video is going online, probably in 2 weeks or something.
Okay, I'll be sure to post it again.
See you. Have a great time. Bye.